Good morning. Why am I wearing a hat? Because I finally get my hair cut today from Amo in an hour and a half, and I can't wait. Look, it is way too long. So didn't bother gelling it. I'm just going to wear a hat. And yes, I missed yesterday. I was going to say hi once I got to the office, and life happened, so I didn't get there. So for Dave Volkema, because I didn't get to do this yesterday was what day? Hump Day! Mike. So we have been talking about how to create rituals. What do I mean by that? Well, going back to a couple of talks ago, we learned that we do certain things in order to feel certain ways. We have recipes. We do know that everything that we feel is because of our triad, our focus, our language, / belief, and our physiology, and that's the triad. And the physiology is number one. You want to make a radical change in how you feel, make a radical change in your physiology. So what we did last time was I asked you to go into an excited state, to go into a depressed state, and do it with somebody else, and then see what you do. What is it that you learn from that? And what you're going to find is that you have a series of patterns that you do in order to feel these things. And we all have them, and quite frankly, they're pretty consistent. Meaning, if you're going to feel depressed, pretty much everybody is doing the same thing in order to feel depressed. And if you're going to feel excited, pretty much everybody's doing the same thing in order to feel that. But you will have a very specific recipe in order to do that. And this can get kind of detailed. It can sound a little complicated, but so is driving a car the first time that you did it. If you ever drove a stick shift, if you learned to do that. And back when I learned to drive a stick shift, everybody was also smoking. So you had to smoke and drive a stick shift. So, because you couldn't be cool unless you were smoking. So that had the added element of something else that you were supposed to be doing while you were messing with the radio and supposedly paying attention to the road. But we all figured out how to do it, and there came a point where you could do it without even thinking. It became automatic. So this is the same thing. When you start to learn about creating success rituals, conditioning rituals, at first it's going to start out and it's going to feel pretty weird. But once you get into it, it's going to become easy. Let me give you another example. If you were to just write your name out, you could do it pretty quickly, especially if you did like your signature. Now, if you were to do every other letter, it would take you significantly longer than if you were to just write the whole name. But if you were to practice writing every other letter in not long, you would be able to do that about half the time as writing your full name, but it would take a little while. So what do we want to learn when it comes to conditioning? Well, we want to learn that we have certain patterns that we can repeat to feel certain ways. If you've ever woke up in the morning before your alarm, excited and ready to go, there was a recipe that you had for that. There was something that you did in order to create that outcome. You thought of something, you heard a voice in your head, you visualized something, you did something physically, and bang, you were up and you were ready to go. If you run that pattern again, you will feel the same way. And if you run it every day for like 30 days, now you will feel that way every day. You will have conditioned that feeling. So let's start out with an easy way to do this. And then over the next couple of days, I'm going to talk about more complicated ways to do this. The biggest thing to know is it's completely possible. Whatever feeling you've had, we can elicit that recipe for that feeling, and we can create something called an anchor so that you can return to that feeling immediately. I have anchors that I use all the time. I have anchors that I use before I speak. I have anchors that I use before I meet with clients. I have anchors that I use before I come home and interact with my significant others there. I have anchors that I use before I talk to my family members in order to put myself, hopefully, in the right state in order to interact with those people. Not always perfect, but a lot better than if you just leave those things to chance. Remember, we decide how we feel. We can allow the world to decide by allowing us to just react, or we can take charge of our life by saying, I'm not going to let the world just control how I feel. I'm going to control how I feel, and I'm going to take charge. And you can do that intentionally And then over time, condition yourself so that you don't have to think about it. This process can have more impact on your life than almost anything else that you do. Because if you condition these success feeling rituals, you're going to respond to life better. As I talked about, state management is everything, right? If the ability to manage your state is going to decide the choices that you have, people that make better choices have better lives. This allows you to not have to think about managing your state, that it just happens automatically. So this is the next step to managing your state, is to condition it to happen the way you want all the time. That's why we do all these rituals in the morning. That's priming, if you've ever done Tony Robbins priming. And if you haven't, go on YouTube. There's videos. Check it out. See what you think. That's morning questions. That's all these things that I talk about that we do again and again and again. So let's talk about one easy one right now, and that's anchoring. My dog is here. Say good morning. Yes, sir. Good morning. Marley wanted to be in the video, so she wanted me to say, hey. Talk about anchoring, okay? Now, how many times have you heard a piece of music and it completely changed how you felt? And it could be good or bad. Maybe it's Titanic, You heard the music of Titanic and you're like, oh my goodness, that's so beautiful. Go ahead, Mooch, I'll go with you. Oh my goodness, it's so beautiful. But then all of a sudden you kind of started feeling kind of sad and the guy dies at the end of Titanic. Leo dies, for crying out loud. You couldn't let him on the door. There wasn't room on that door for him to crawl up on there. You had to let the guy freeze to death and drown. So you might not feel great when you hear that music, even though it's beautiful music and you're thinking to yourself, oh, it's so wonderful. But how about this one? And this is like coming up on 50 years old. What if you hear the theme from Rocky? Play it in your head right now. You already are, because I mentioned it. Now, you cannot tell me that if you hear that song, it doesn't make you want to get up and move around and start doing push-ups and doing jumping jacks and getting ready to kick the crap out of something that you're not supposed to be able to kick the crap out of. We are conditioned by that, even if that movie came out years before we were ever born. That theme creates a conditioned response. How about the opening to the Bulls? How about that theme where they turn out the lights and you hear that song? Also creates the same thing. You have your own that you could use. Whatever they are, over the next couple of days through this weekend, use them. I had a period in my life where I would have my phone hooked up to my sound in my house, and my alarm was set to play the scene from Wall Street where our lead character calls Gordon Gekko calls Buddy from the beach and says, "Money never sleeps, pal. This is your wake up call. Go to work." I used that as my wake up for a period of time when I was going through my financial crisis. That even though the day before I maybe didn't get anywhere or felt like I didn't get anywhere, I had to get up the next day and keep fighting and figure out how to get out of this financial situation that I was in. And I had that play at 4:30 every day. Well, it wasn't long, and I was conditioned to get up and start making it happen. And I used that anchor as a way to help me do that. So rather than starting out by eliciting a recipe, we don't need to do that. We could just elicit a response. So find an anchor that you have, and music is a great one to think about. A movie scene is also great. It could be a motivational song from a movie, something by Pink, something by it could be one of those types of things. It could be a speech that's given in a movie. Creed, Rocky gave a great speech in Creed. That's another great one. But whatever it is for you, and post them. It'd be great if you posted them. I'll post a couple here later on today. But post a couple of your favorites. But whatever it is that you want, that you're going to use, make a commitment to find one and use it every morning for the next week or 10 days or couple of weeks. Play that song and feel those feelings and start to feel those anchors and those triggers. because it doesn't take very long to condition a new response. It doesn't take very long for you to start feeling habitually that way. If you do it again and again a few times, now you're going to automatically wake up and feel that way. It's just what's going to happen. And that puts you in a whole different position to have success for life. So we're entering a new category. Pardon me, still recovering a little bit. And it's called success conditioning, the power of rituals. This is the power of creating rituals that condition you for success even on the days where you wake up and you don't feel like doing it. Because let's face it, those days happen. And so you got to have all these conditioned systems in place so that you automatically trigger yourself in a position to being productive and to being in a great state. All of this is still under the guise of state management. Remember, manage your state, you got everything. Don't manage your state, you don't have anything. This is a way to go from having to consciously manage your state to unconsciously your state being managed on its own. That's what we're doing. We're setting up systems so that that happens automatically and you don't have to intentionally do it all the time. Make sense? Sounds a little complicated at first, but quite frankly, once you get the hang of it, just like riding a bike, it's actually not that bad. So find a couple of anchors, find a couple of triggers. Let's post a couple here. The song "This Is Me" from the thing about P.T. Barnum. That's an amazing song, and the video of the first time they heard that song, very powerful. That's a great one. We'll post a bunch of them on this thread. That'll be great. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Oh, I got to say hi. Jim, thank you for watching the whole thing. My cousin Chrissy out in Boston. How are you, girl? Go to Dunkin' Donuts. Why don't you? Thanks for watching, everybody. We're all in this together. Let's take care of each other.